Welcome to High Capacity, the podcast that helps you expand your nervous system's capacity so you can have the career and the family and the goals and actually enjoy them. I'm your host, Michelle Grosser. I'm a trial attorney turned nervous system strategist. If your life is full by every measure and your nervous system is feeling it, this is your show. Every Tuesday, I'm here to unpack the nervous system science behind why you feel wired, overwhelmed, and depleted, and give you real tools to actually do something about it. Let's dive in. Hey guys, it's Michelle. Welcome back to High Capacity. May-summer, as they call it, is up and running. Our family just got back from Pittsburgh for the weekend. We went out. We were supposed to go out on Friday morning to fly from Houston to Pittsburgh. And I got to the airport with the girls at like 8 a.m. and our flight kept getting delayed. Long story short, it got delayed and then they ended up putting us on another plane and we landed in Pittsburgh at like 1 a.m, Saturday morning, I guess. Hung out on Saturday. The girls ran a little 1-mile race in the Pittsburgh Marathon. It was so fun. And then on Sunday morning, I ran the half marathon and I ended around 10:30, and at 11:30 we were back at the airport flying back home to Houston. And then here we are Monday morning and the girls are in school, and I've been getting caught up on work. And just throughout the last few days I've been thinking a lot about rest because it is May and there's a lot going on in May, right? It's like end of school year stuff, teacher appreciation weeks, graduations, planning for the summer, all the end of the year stuff like recitals or sports games or what have you. It's just a lot. And then so this month inside of my alumni program, which is called the Expansion, it's like a special membership for alumni of my group programs, which by the way, the capacity method starts again in June. So just to keep an eye out if that's something that you were interested in joining us for and learning how to regulate your nervous system and expand your capacity and expand your resilience. I'm so excited about it. So more info coming about that later this month. If you've been keeping an eye out for it, it is coming and we're going to start in June, but I digress. Inside of the Expansion, we have a monthly topic. So every month there's one topic. At the beginning of the month on the 1st, I drop the workbook and a short teaching on the topic and an integration piece. And then we just work through that one area of focus for the whole month. So for May, we're focusing on rest inside of the Expansion. And we're focusing not on just like resting more or doing less or taking naps or slowing down, but like finding the rest that actually recharges us. And recharging is the key throughout May for us inside of the Expansion. But it's the key for what I want to talk about today on the podcast because I've been thinking about this analogy that came to me, I don't know, a few years ago, but I've been thinking about it a lot lately. So follow me for a moment here. Picture your cell phone, right? You get home at the end of the day, school pickup, the end of work, what have you. You just get home. You've been on your phone all day long, right? You've had it with you. You get home at the end of the day and you walk in and you just set your phone down on the counter, wherever it is that you kind of put your keys or put your stuff down, okay? You put it down for me, put it down on the counter, face down, and I kind of walk away. Say hello to everybody. If I'm going to get started on dinner, go upstairs and change, right? My phone is there. It's laying on the counter. It's face down. It's not on. It's not technically doing anything. There's no apps running or no notifications coming in. Like it's just sitting there, right? It's technically resting. But it's not charging. And it needs to be connected to a power source in order for it to actually recharge, right? And until it's connected to a power source, it's just going to keep sitting there. And the battery is actually going to go down, right? Until it's depleted and it's not recovering and it's not restoring. It's just kind of idling, right? It's just kind of waiting there. And I think a lot of times when we think about quote unquote rest, we think of the same thing or we do the same thing. It's like we just lay there without actually connecting to a power source. We lie on the couch and we scroll or we binge a show or we just zone out or we shop online or like we browse nothing in particular. And we're calling that rest. And I mean, technically, we're not doing anything. We're not like exerting ourselves, but we're also not connected to a power source. So when we get up an hour later after this type of rest and we feel just as tired as we did when we sat down, or even more tired, right? Sometimes we feel even worse after. And then we wonder why rest isn't working. It's working. We're just not plugged in to a power source. And I've just been thinking about this a lot as it relates to rest because, for me, I'm just gonna be real with you guys. I can still struggle with traditional rest, right? It's like, I know even today, right? I ran a half marathon yesterday. I'm like, oh my gosh, seems like it was a week ago. Yesterday. And I know my body needs rest today. My muscles are sore, right? I'm kind of just achy. I feel depleted. But I really struggle with the traditional doing nothing, being like truly still kind of rest. It's something I'm actively working on. And one of the things that's genuinely changed my relationship with rest is discovering that there are actually 7 distinct types of rest. And that for most of my life, I'd just been reaching for the same 1 or 2 kinds of rest and then wondering why, if I laid down and tried to take a nap on a Sunday afternoon, why the wheels are still turning and I'm tossing and turning in bed and I can't turn it off and I can't fall asleep in the middle of the day because there's so much I still need to do. And then I get out of bed 45 minutes later, just kind of frustrated that I don't feel more rested and I feel like I just wasted 45 minutes of my day, right? So I don't know if any of you can relate to that. But once I learned that there were actually 7 types of rest and I could engage whichever type I feel like I was depleted in or needed most at the moment, things really shifted for me. All right. So we talk about expanding 5 different areas of capacity. We kind of rotate through them on this podcast. So today we're going to talk about physical and energetic capacity. Okay. Specifically, our ability to actually restore and not just slow down or, rest our bodies. So I think a lot of us, for the most part, when we think of rest, we think of physical rest, right? We think of that Sunday nap, like I was just talking about. We think about laying down and doing nothing, maybe even sleeping. That's what rest means for most people. And because that's only one type of rest we're intentionally pursuing, then there are 6 other types that go usually completely untouched. And a nervous system that's depleted in, let's say, mental rest or sensory rest or emotional rest, that body, that nervous system doesn't care how many hours you spent horizontal on the couch, right? It's still running. It's still carrying. It's still waiting for the thing it actually needs. So today on the podcast, we're going to go through 7 distinct types of rest. I did not develop these. These are from Dr. Sandra Dalton Smith's work on rest, her study of rest. We're going to walk through them today because I'm willing to bet that at least probably 2 or 3 of them are areas where you're like, oh my gosh, I know I'm so depleted in that area of rest. Like I need this and I just haven't realized it yet. All right, so let's jump in and go through all 7. The first one is physical rest. And that's the one that we all know. That's that passive physical rest where we're sleeping, we're going to bed earlier, we're laying down, we're taking a nap, we're being still. Active physical rest could even be gentle movement, right? Maybe it's just stretching. Maybe it's going for a walk outside, like a slow, gentle walk. Anything that can release physical tension without adding more stress to your body. And that's the default. I think this is the type of rest, physical rest, that we tend to reach for first when we're feeling tired. And sometimes it's exactly what we need, right? I think also if you guys have taken the capacity pattern quiz, actually, I want to do this. I want to kind of point out as I'm going through these types of rest, how certain capacity patterns might relate to and or struggle with this type of rest. So what's coming to mind for me right now is anchors. If you tend to run the anchor capacity pattern, if you have no idea what I'm talking about, I'm talking about our capacity pattern quiz. There's a link for it in the show notes. It'll take you 2 or 3 minutes. And then you'll find out your capacity pattern. The idea is that when each of us reaches our capacity, right? Our nervous system's ability to hold stress. When we reach our limit and we're heading into a stress response, fight, flight, freeze, or fawn, we fall into an automatic pattern to deal with that overwhelm. And that's your capacity pattern. What do you automatically do when you're maxed out, when you're at capacity? So if you've taken the quiz and you know you tend to run the anchor capacity pattern, physical rest alone, especially for you anchors, often isn't enough because the anchor pattern tends to suppress movement and it tends to suppress expression. So that means your body's already carrying a lot of unexpressed emotion and unreleased tension. And just being still, laying down, being sedentary, that's not going to help you discharge all of that unreleased tension, okay? If you lie down and rest, you probably still feel heavy and stuck when you get up. It's not that you need more physical rest. It might be that your body actually needs to move some energy first, okay? So that's the first type of rest, physical rest. All right, and then the second type of rest is mental rest. So this is rest from our cognitive stressors, our cognitive load. So think like all the decisions that you have to make in a day, all the mental tabs, right? All the mental browsers running like 17 things simultaneously. This is a type of rest that I have to be really intentional about building in because I always need this type of rest at the end of the day. So mental rest isn't just about doing less or thinking about less or being more organized. But what I've learned is that it's really about creating these intentional breaks in the mental noise. Okay. So I have started to build in micro breaks during my day, just like 5-7 minutes of margin between either tasks or between meetings. So old Michelle would be booked straight, right? The minute I dropped my kids off, I would come back. And from that moment until I picked them up, it was just like task, or I was just in meetings all day long, right? I don't do that anymore. I know that that's not good for my brain and it's not good for my nervous system. So now I do let's say coaching calls, for example. Instead of doing 60-minute coaching calls, I do 50-minute coaching calls. And then they'll usually go 52, 53 minutes, right? I can close it out. And then I have 6 or 7 minutes before my next call starts. So I can just sit here in silence and breathe. I can go to the bathroom. I can get a snack, right? I can respond to a text. I can just sit with my eyes closed. Whatever it is, I have some margin, micro breaks during the day. Putting something down on paper so your brain doesn't have to hold it. Reducing, like choosing silence. Let's say, for example, on your commute, if you work or when you go drop the kids off at school, instead of taking in more information, right? Listening to a podcast or an audio book, filling yourself with more input. That's mental rest, is silencing, slowing a lot of the cognitive tasks. And if you run the capacity pattern as a navigator, if you tend to be a navigator, when you're at capacity, when you're maxed out, this one's, I think, can be a little bit tricky because you probably sit down to relax or rest and somehow you end up like somewhere else entirely, right? Maybe you grab your laptop and all of a sudden it's been 2 hours and you've been down like a rabbit hole of planning a vacation itinerary for, 2028, right? Or like planning a home renovation project that you haven't even started budgeting for. And the project changes, but like that mental engine never really turns off, right? And that's really what this mental rest looks like. Sometimes we think we're resting, but we're still being productive and it's still activating us mentally. So we want to be able to just kind of like quiet that down in order to give ourselves mental rest. All right, so that was the second one. The third type of rest is sensory rest. This is also a huge one for me and for a lot of the women that I work with. It might be huge for you too. Sensory rest, right? We all know what it feels like to be overstimulated. Our nervous system's processing so much sensory data on any given day, right? Probably more than it was ever designed to handle between our screens, notifications, all the background noise, like whatever my kids are watching or doing or talking about in the background, light, right? Sometimes I'll walk into a place or even in my house, if like all the overhead lights are on, I'm like, it's too much, right? Turn it down. All the information coming at us from every direction, just available everywhere. We're inundated. Sensory rest is a break from all of that, right? And I think this is probably the most chronically neglected type of rest, but it makes a surprisingly fast difference when you actually try it. So for us and our family, the house we live in right now, the overhead lighting is horrible. It's like you just walked into a Walmart when you walk into our kitchen and living room when the overhead lights are on. Like they're almost fluorescent. They're so bright and they're horrible. Like they give me a headache. Nothing about them feels like cozy and homey. So we just went on Wayfair and I bought some really simple like floor lamps and some table lamps and some candles and just like warm, cozy lighting. You guys have no idea how much of a difference that makes. Or maybe you do and you're like me. But man, dimming the lights in the evening if you can. In our old house in Miami, we had dimmers in every room and it was my favorite thing to do. The minute I started to make dinner, I would just go through the house and dim all the lights and then put on some soft music. And it was just like my body would just do the biggest exhales. Like, oh, yes, this is so good. Sitting just quietly, right, for 10 minutes, putting your phone in another room, having part of your commute either in the morning or in the afternoon, just in quiet, right, without music, without listening to a podcast or something. Can you go on a walk or work out without music or a podcast? Can you fold laundry without TV playing in the background, right? Is there a way that you can let your eyes rest midday for a few minutes just on something that isn't a screen? All of those things help us to get sensory rest. And I think most of us don't realize how overstimulated our nervous system is when it comes to stimulation until we start to grow an awareness of it, right? And start to notice all of the things that are causing us to feel stimulated and start to remove or minimize them. And then you get that feeling like I feel when I go dimming all the lights in my house. It's like, that full body just kind of exhale. So that's the third, sensory rest. The fourth type of rest is creative rest. And I think this one surprises a lot of people. Creative rest also isn't just about output, right? It's actually the opposite. It's being recharged and being restored just through observing and appreciating the things around us that are beautiful, just having this sense of wonder and awe and inspiration without having to do anything or make anything or fix anything. So think like just being in nature and enjoying that, right? Going on a hike, going to a botanical garden, going to a field with wildflowers, like whatever it is, just being outside and appreciating nature, art, music, right? A walk with just no destination and no agenda and just like enjoying everything around you, the sound of the birds and the feel of the sunshine on your face. Anything really that just opens you up and lights you up and inspires you rather than something you're obligated to do or required to do or another responsibility or another task. And when it comes to capacity patterns, for this one, I'm thinking of the architect, which is the pattern I tend to run. If you guys have been listening, you already know that. Because this is one of the hardest types of rest to actually access, especially for architects. Because if you run the architect capacity pattern, your default is probably only to consume in service of the next thing, right? So you're reading, but you're reading because there's an end to that, right? I want to learn how to deal with this stage in my kids' development, or, I'm learning about this because it's going to help me in a future project, or there's this part of my habit that I'm wanting to optimize because I know that it's not serving me well, or whatever it is, right? Or you're doing research because it's preparing you for what's coming next. And it feels quieter than working, right? Like I'm not working. I'm just on the couch with my laptop and my spreadsheet open. But your nervous system is still in accumulation mode. And it's rest that feeds a future output. That's still work, you guys. So creative rest really requires receiving for its own sake, right? For joy, for pleasure, for enjoyment, not because it's going to serve another end or like a plan because of what we're going to do with something. So that's the fourth one, creative rest. The fifth type of rest is emotional rest. And I love this one because as working moms, high achieving moms, ambitious moms, holy moly, do we spend a lot of our day attuning to other people, right? We are managing dynamics at home, managing dynamics at work, reading the room, right? Holding space, staying regulated enough so that other people can feel safe and do what they have to do. And so we can function well. And then by the time we get to ourselves, a lot of times there's nothing left, right? We've been so busy managing our family, everyone else, frankly, all their experiences, that we lose track of our own. So for emotional rest, I think a lot of it is about just garnering the ability to stop performing, suppressing, pretending everything's okay, managing, and just actually feeling what's present, like what's true for you right now. Maybe it's dropping the performance, right? Maybe it's saying the true thing instead of just trying to sweep it under the rug and pretend everything's okay, right? Maybe it's letting yourself feel something, disappointment, anger, frustration, sadness, grief, all of that without feeling like you have to immediately fix it or justify it or explain it. And I think, again, when we talk about capacity patterns, I think if you tend to run the caretaker capacity pattern, probably watch this one closely, because I think a caretaker tends to find it restful or call it restful when you are checking in on other people and staying available and helping out. And you're telling yourself like it's no big deal, right? I'm resting, I'm relaxing, I'm just like going to jump on a phone call with this person or what have you. But you're still oriented outward, right? You're still responsible for holding space for someone else, for letting them kind of like vent to you, holding space for their experience. And oftentimes that's not restful, right? That's a rest that actually keeps you responsible for others. And that's not rest. So that's the fifth one, emotional rest. Two more. The sixth type of rest is social rest. And I think this one, I think it requires a distinction. A lot of people, or it's just easy to miss because not all social time is restorative. If you are an introvert, or what do they call it? An extroverted introvert. I don't know what that term is for people that like to go out sometimes, but actually recharge by being alone. That's me. Then I don't have to tell you, not all social time is restorative and not all alone time is restful, right? On the other end of the spectrum. Social rest, when we talk about this type of rest, is really about recharging through the right kind of connection, right? Connection that actually lights you up. People who genuinely energize you instead of just draining all of your energy. Places, people where you can be yourself, where you don't have to manage how you're coming across and every little thing that you're saying and holding space for other big personalities. I'm talking about being with people socially that's actually energizing. Or it can even be through intentional solitude that actually feels restorative, right? It actually feels like, hey, I just need some space this weekend. Let's not go to 47 birthday parties. And then at the end of the weekend, you're like, man, I just needed that, right? I needed that time alone, or I needed that time with just our family at home, having, ordering pizza and just having pajamas, wearing pajamas all day. That's not just isolation, right? There's a rest there. There's a social rest. And again, back to capacity patterns, the one that's coming up for me here is if you tend to run the warrior capacity pattern, I think this can get sneaky because maybe you can tend to have a packed social calendar or a weekend with very little white space or just like downtime where you're actually exerting yourself, right? Maybe that looks like really hard workouts or going for long runs. Movement and connection, yes, those are real rest types, but when they're being used to stay ahead of stillness or to, avoid what happens when you actually slow down and stop, because that's really uncomfortable, they actually become another form of output. So when I'm talking about rest, right, especially when we talk about social rest, I'm talking about rest that doesn't require performance. And then finally, the seventh type of rest is spiritual rest. Spiritual rest, right? How do we rest in a way that we are connected to a larger meaning for ourselves and our lives, right? Our purpose, something bigger than all the little things we're running around doing in our day to day. And I'm not necessarily talking about religion, really. But for those of you for whom faith is central, it might include that. But spiritual rest is really this sense of like that you and what you do matters, right? That you belong, that you're oriented towards something that's bigger than just what you can accomplish or get done in a day or your productivity. It's the question underneath all of that doing, like what's actually driving you? Does any of this mean anything, right? So how does spiritual rest show up? Well, it might be things like prayer or meditation or stillness. It might be time in nature with intention, right? It might be service. It might be spending time with your community. It might be like anything that gives you a sense of being a part of something bigger and something larger than what you could do on your own or what you do on your own for the most part. And I think it's the type of rest that a lot of us are often craving, or at least this is the least likely for us to name because it requires us to slow down. Right? It requires us to do something that maybe doesn't in the moment feel productive or feel like the best use of our time or like we have time for it, right? It's like, yeah, I'll get back to like meditation, or I'm going to start praying in the morning when my schedule clears up, right? Or I've been wanting to, go down to this nonprofit and serve there with our family once a month, but we've been really caught up in baseball or swimming and we're going to get to it next season, right? And then that just keeps getting pushed back. So if this is a type of rest that feels like it's something that you could benefit from, I would encourage you to make it a priority. So those are the 7 types of rest. Let me scroll up in my notes and go through them one more time. So 1 is physical rest. 2 is mental rest. 3 is sensory rest. 4 is creative rest, right? Just enjoying beauty, wonder, nature, inspiration. 5 is emotional rest. 6 is social rest. And then 7, this last one we just talked about, is spiritual rest. All right. So from those 7 types of rest, my invitation for you is that take away from this that your nervous system probably has a specific power source. Right? There's probably a few of these types of rest that actually signal safety to your nervous system, at least safety enough that your body gets the memo that it's like, okay, we're all good, right? We can downregulate, we can exhale, we can actually just enjoy ourselves and be and receive. That is the power source. And it's probably going to be different for everyone, right? Depending on your life experience and just kind of how you're wired. And I think for a lot of us, I'll speak for myself, until recently, like the last few years, I never really figured out what my power source is. Like what's the type of rest that I really need that really energizes me that I'm just not getting, right? We tend to default to the same 1 or 2, and it's usually the most passive, right? For a long time for me, it was like I get home and I'm just going to like lay on the couch with my eyes half open and stare into space, maybe holding my phone and looking at it, or maybe literally just staring into space, right? That's all I felt like I had the energy for. And then I wonder why I'm so tired, even though I'm just laying there doing nothing, right? That type of rest isn't what my nervous system's actually hungry for all the time, right? Sometimes maybe it is, but not all the time. A lot of times I need mental rest. A lot of times I need sensory rest. A lot of times I need spiritual rest, right? I need to stop doing and just start being. Figure out what type of rest that you actually need. You guys can play around with this. And then I think as it relates to our capacity pattern, I think that does have an impact on the type of rest that we naturally gravitate toward. And then I think it also has an impact on the types of rest that we might even be unconsciously avoiding, right? Because the navigator doesn't want to stop and the warrior doesn't want to be still and the architect doesn't want to do anything that doesn't produce, right? The caretaker avoids turning inward. Like these aren't random preferences. These are patterns. And I think once you understand your pattern better, you can really start making intentional choices everywhere, but even as it relates to how you choose to rest. So if you haven't taken the capacity pattern quiz yet, that's your next step. It's free. It takes just a few minutes. The link's in the show notes. You can go take that quiz and then you'll just be redirected to a landing page where you can read all about your quiz result, whatever your capacity pattern is. And then you'll be invited to listen to a free private podcast all about your capacity pattern. if that's something that you're curious about. So the link for that is in the show notes. But before you go, for this week, I want you to pick one type of rest from this list that you don't normally reach for, right? What would that look like? Instead of coming home and just like falling into the couch, melting into the couch and picking up your phone at the end of the day, or you put the kids down and then it's like just melt into the couch. What's a category that you haven't been using, or maybe you've been underusing it, right? Maybe you're like, yeah, it is social rest. Like we've had stuff every weekend for the last, like, I can't even remember how long. I need to really carve out some time for me to be either alone or just with our immediate family or with people who actually energize me because I'm exhausted, right? Or maybe you need sensory rest and you're like, I'm going to drive home right now and I'm going to put on noise canceling headphones and dim all the lights before I start making dinner because I'm maxed out. Like I can't stand any more sensory stimulation right now. Okay. Whatever it is, just think about what you could start getting curious with and playing around with this week and then try it. Right. And when you do, you can ask yourself like, hey, did this actually land in my body or did I just kind of go through the motions? And afterward, after doing this type of rest, engaging in it, like, do I feel more capacity? Do I feel energized? Do I feel like I can show up differently? Or was I just, passing time? Okay. Just that noticing in and of itself is data. And that data is how you're going to find your power source. What's the type of rest that actually recharges you? All right. We're going to talk more about this on Friday, specifically sensory rest in our High Cap Friday episode. So if you're listening to this in real time on Tuesday, come back on Friday. If you're listening to this at any other time, listen to the next episode if it's been published, the High Cap Friday episode, because I'm going to specifically walk you through how we can go about getting more sensory rest for those days that we feel really overstimulated. All right. Thanks so much for being here. I love y'all so much. I'll talk to you soon.
If you love Mommy's Podcast, leave a review.
Thanks so much for tuning in today. If you haven't taken the What's Your Capacity Pattern quiz yet, that is your next step. It'll tell you which of the 5 capacity patterns is driving your dysregulation, your exhaustion, your reactions, your stress, all of it. So you know exactly where to focus your energy first. It's free. It'll take you 2 minutes. The link for the quiz is in the show notes. And then come back on Friday for one practical tool, the high cap move to take into your week, because putting the stuff into practice is what is actually going to change things. All right, I'll see you on Friday.